We're live here on March 26th, 2021. I'm Justin Spaulding. This is The Justin Spaulding Show, episode 14. Already on 14. I say that every week. We're already on it's like, but hey, we're just being consistent. We're moving along week by week, and it's just flying by. Having fun doing this. I love it. This is actually one of the highlights of my week. You know, and we're now spending it with Maudine here, who's kind of our producer, I guess. You know, if he wants that high of a label. Yeah, this kind of stemmed a little bit from Ryder's comment back in December, a couple months back, and said, hey, we should start a podcast. I'm like, all right, let's do it. And we started that week. So we've been going every single week strong since then. Not going to stop now. We're going to keep going, keep pounding through, keep giving you guys content. I know a lot of questions. Basically today's episode is going to be all about Prime Painters, how I started it, how I started to scale it, how much money I used, and the first things I did, et cetera, et cetera. I reached out. I've been getting the question a lot. Been getting this question a lot. How'd you start Prime Painters? Why'd you think of doing it? You have all this other stuff going on. Isn't your time better spent just in the real estate? Blah, 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 blah. And I just want to be able to, I'm getting enough questions on. I'm like, let's just make an entire show. And who knows, this might end up just being 2 shows, but let's just take an entire show and just go through like my mindset with it, and just kind of everything that we've done. And maybe we will make this 2 shows. Maybe we'll make this show right here all about it. And like from my perspective, I'll answer questions that we have so far. And then I think from our audience, they can dive in on even deeper. If they watch the whole episode, they can dive in even deeper on certain questions. Maybe we'll see what type of feedback we get. If we get enough questions after this episode. So pay attention to this episode, whether you're listening, watching, maybe watch it twice, whatever. But the things that I say, pick up on certain things and just listen and write down any questions that you have. If I don't end up answering somewhere along the way in this episode, if I get enough questions, quality questions like that make me dive deeper in to give you a little bit better context, a little bit different angle, viewpoint, so it makes more sense in your brain, because that's what this is all about, then we'll do a follow-up show to this following this one, which would be episode 15. Yeah. Diving deeper into, it'll be like the Prime Painters deep dive or something. I don't know. So, just high level, a lot of people, and let me just kind of look at the questions that I've got. So some of the questions that I've got and kept throughout the last handful of weeks, walk us through the first 60 days of starting that business. And then there's another question here. What is the biggest thing you've learned after 1 year / what changes are you making to improve? So it's a lot of questions like that. Do you plan to keep Prime Painters local, or do you want to scale it to max it out? Then there's questions such as, how did you initially fund it? Was it some of my own money along the way, or is this more organic growth and bootstrapping? Another question was, how have you gone about hiring and knowing what roles you need for the business? There's another question, how much knowledge did you have about painting when you started? If it was little, how did that impact your approach to starting the company and hiring people? Another question is, how involved are you with the company? Have you ever used a paintbrush on one of your jobs? Or are you more strictly a manager of the company and more hands-off? And then why did I decide to start Prime Painters? How I started it? Was there a course that you took? Did you have mentors? How did you know like the benchmarkings and how to quote jobs? So all of these are awesome questions. And I've been getting, like I said, so many of them that I'm like, I want to just create a whole show. And I've been responding to certain people have been asking the question, hey, we're just going to create a whole episode around this. And they're like super jacked for the episode. So hopefully this is a good episode. Hopefully I give you guys what you want and what you need. Maudine, before we get started into this, if you want to hand me the 3M paper over there, the sticky paper, just in case I decide to start drawing, never know when we might start to get crazy in here. So I guess if I just start with the high level, why did I start Prime Painters? I looked at it, and as we've been growing, right, we started at 4 apartments. We started with another 4. We got another 4 apartments that took us to 8. Bought 150 storage units that also had 5 apartments on it. That took us to 13. Then we bought an 88 unit. We bought a 24 unit and a 40 unit, and looking at those financial statements, I see the cash outflow necessary to turn these properties around. So I see that outflow, but then I also see this type of service and the actual product that we're getting for that outflow. And for a long time, I've looked at certain areas and I'm like, man, this service, the quality of this service, the quality of the customer service is not adequate for what we're trying to do. There's lack of communication. There's a lot of holes and a lot of issues the way that we were operating. And so finally, you know, it was March, 2020, right? So I started Prime Painters in the middle of COVID, right? Everyone's freaking out, shutting down doors. I start a painting company, okay? It's a good lesson right there in itself. When everyone's panicking, what do you think you got to do? We hear this over and over again, right? That the most successful investors make their money when there's panic because that's when they're going to go in and invest, right? Everyone's panicking, and I'm like, hey, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to start this business right now, right? So in the face of fear, I didn't just back down and go worry. I'm like, hey, how can we turn this into opportunity? And the opportunity for us at that point was for our company, we had 2 apartment buildings, one right behind me here, Signature 23. And then Broadway, it was Broadway Square. We were going to paint all the common areas, so we started to get some of the bids. And I'm looking at these bids, and I'm like, my God, these bids are just out of this world, like crazy expensive. And all I started to do was like, if I were to paint that wall right there, how long would it take me, right? And I would compare that to and I would break the bid down to like that one wall. I would be like, okay, and then of the bid that they gave me, what percentage of that wall would be the bid? And I started to think, I'm like, my God, like it's like $80, $90, and that wall would take me an hour. So like in my mind right there, $80, $90 to paint that one wall, I'm like, if I can hire someone from between $14 to $19.50, $20, we can go out and do this actually for less for the property, was my initial mindset. Save the property money and then start a side business, start another business essentially that can offer our properties a better service, a better level of service. They'd be sister companies, right? Prime Painters and Spaulding Group would be sister companies. So now we have people working together. The communication should be better. There should be more care in the project. We should get a better product for a cheaper price. So that was my initial thought. Now, come to find out, skipping a little bit, just talking about the price thing, I couldn't actually operate Prime Painters being more competitive in price. So we're actually more charging our properties retail, but the level of service and the quality of product and the timeliness from which we can get something done is so much better that it's a huge benefit for the properties to be able to pay the same what they were paying before and get a better service, better product, right? Better value. So, the first project then what I did, and so as I'm thinking about this whole thing, I'm kind of back to the whole big idea. Now, as I'm thinking about this whole thing of hiring people, I'm like, all right, I can hire one guy to do this building. I can hire another guy to do that building. If it's just one guy working on the projects, it'll take him a couple weeks, bigger building, right? It'll take him, 7 to 12 working days, right? And so I'm like, in that 7 to 12 days, I need to be able to then dig up more work that those guys will be able to go do after. And it can be at our properties if we have turns or more painting to do, or it can be retail customers. Ideally, I wanted to grow the retail side of the business. I didn't want to I used our properties to help get started, right? But, and I'm going to go into why you don't have to have that. I was lucky enough to have it. I put in the work before where I had properties that need painting, so it helped us get a start, right? I got 2 guys on board. While those guys were on board painting our properties, I was out marketing. I just took stock photos from online. I went online and did before and after house painting, interior, exterior. So I took stock photos. So they weren't even projects that we did. Now, some people are like, well, that's a scam or that's whatever. It's a scam if your intent is to truly scam people. My intent was to actually provide a really great customer experience for any project that we would do. And we've gotten really good reviews. We've gotten a lot of referrals from people that we've done work for. So we're making, I think that we're providing a great service to the community. So, but that was my creativity. Okay, and that's what you could do. Whatever business you're doing, you can always find someone else's track record, which in this scenario, it was before and after painting someone else's before and after paint projects on Google, right? And use those for advertising. And so I put together some advertising to see what type of traffic we would get. And all of a sudden I started through Home Advisor, CraftJack, Thumbtack. Now you have to pay for those leads, $20 to $60, right? And we started to get traffic. Now, if you don't have the money to use CraftJack or Thumbtack or to pay for advertising, you can go door to door, which we're starting with 2 marketers on April 6th. They're starting with us. One's an intern and one's a full-time marketing marketer. They're going to go door knocking. So if you're looking at this, oh, but Justin, I don't have apartment buildings to start my business. I don't have, and all this advice I'm about to give you too isn't just good for painting. Right? You got to be able to take the concepts and apply it to whatever type of business is out there. All right. But if it's specifically painting, you gotta be like, oh, Justin, I don't have the resources. I don't have the apartments to get me started like that. I don't have the money that you have to get me started. Like, right. You can go knock door to door. And if you go knock on 100 doors a night, you will find over a course of a week, you will find 3 to 6 painting jobs that you'll be able to do. You got to be able to talk to people, you got to be able to network, and you got to be able to put yourself out there. But if you go knock on doors, 500 doors in a week, you'll find at least 3, 5, 6, maybe a max of 10 if you're really good, houses that you'd be able to paint. And now you're off and running, right? So don't think you have to have all these resources. I was lucky enough to have it, but you don't need it, right? Now, when we got the property rocking and rolling, we started to get some revenue. I just basically started investing all the proceeds, the profits back into the company. So I was only out, when I started Prime Painters, I was out about $4,000. Now, I think you could definitely start with less than $4,000. For example, I knew this was something that we were going to use at least for our own properties. So I started our own separate LLC, right? So I had attorney fees that you would not have to have right away. I had, documents that you wouldn't have to have right away. I went above and beyond on the equipment that I had because I knew what was going to happen if I only bought just the bare minimum. And if I only spent like $100 on equipment versus spending $2,000 on equipment, I knew then what would have to happen is a week and a half later, or 3 weeks later, I'd have to just go buy more materials. I wanted to save. I need more time back. Some people need to save a little bit more money. I needed time back, so I cut a little bit bigger check up front for a little bit more equipment, so I wouldn't have to go get as much and cut my days up in the middle, right? So you can start for way less than $4,000. You can start a painting company. That $4,000 also went towards getting those guys started before we had revenue come in. I wanted a little bit of a cushion there. So you can probably take that away because you might not have people. You may or may not have people that are painting for you. You might go out and touch the paintbrush yourself, which is fine. Like you might have to straight up bootstrap it that much. When I say I bootstrapped this, I bootstrapped it, but I didn't bootstrap it to the point where I've done any painting. I have done 0 painting. How much about painting? I know one of the questions that was asked, how much about painting did I know before this? I mean, I knew that we painted walls gray in our apartments, right? I didn't know a lot. So here's the next topic, right? You can again, just like I talked about with the marketing and stuff, most businesses that are out there are not, I talk about this a lot, are not Teslas. Like it's not some type of crazy science or intellectual property or some secret formula. Like Tesla got a little bit of a secret formula. For anyone to just go start a company like it is going to take a lot of knowledge, a lot of, whatever. Anyone can go do it. But a painting company, right? There's a ton of painting companies out there. So what did I do? I all the time am telling people, hey, pour money back into yourself and learn, right? Whatever you want to do, it can be learned. No matter what they say, it can be learned. So you got to find someone, though, who's successful that you can listen to. And you can't listen to too many people, because if you listen to too many people, you're going to be frozen. You'll be like, oh, wait, should I listen to Jim or should I listen to Bob? Because Jim says A and Bob says Z, and I'm just stuck in the middle, and I can't choose which way to go, right? So you got to choose one. So what I did was I went online and I just started Googling painting, like online painting. I think I Googled starting my own painting business, and I stumbled upon, this is bad that I can't think of the name now, but it's Painting Business Pro, I believe. And they're out of Colorado, and I took their course. I paid $2,000. I took the course, right? Now, once again, there were other options for the course. I didn't have to start at $2,000. I did because I knew that was going to give me everything, and I could just sort through what I needed to see. Did I watch the entire course? No. What I was looking for was some standard operating procedures so that I knew when I hired the painters that, hey, this is what we're going to operate by. I knew we were operating then with a guideline and a baseline that was going to get us good results. And I didn't have to have someone that was a super talented painter, but as long as the guys had some experience, we'd be able to work from the standard operating procedures that I got from the course. Right, I paid $2,000. Like, I got a $2,000 course out there. People are like, oh, but you don't buy stuff like, dude, I buy stuff like that. I pour into myself. I bought the course, didn't watch the whole course, but I took what I needed. I took what I needed to get the business started. So I take the course, we get the standard operating procedures as far as like how to paint an exterior house, how to bid an estimate, and how to get an estimate on exterior, how to do the same thing for the interior. Right, and that's all we started with. We just started with interior, exterior of houses, And obviously we were painting our apartments as well. But other than our apartments, it was just interior, exterior of our of other people's houses in the community. And so we had the standard operating procedures. I made sure that I sat down with the two guys that I hired and said, hey, these are our standard operating procedures. Here we go. They agreed. They had some experience, right? Paid the guys, around, I don't know, between $17 and $18 to start, I think. And so they had experience. They agreed, hey, yeah, these look good, and let's go. So then what happened when I unleashed them on our own project, when I started unleashing them on the retail projects, I would get out there and double check, right? Because the last thing that I wanted was me to not really understand what I was doing, but then also get painters that didn't know what they were doing and now end up in a pickle where I've got a $3,500 paint job on an exterior of a house, and we just messed up the first half of it and we wasted $1,600 essentially. Now got to fix the problem. We get $3,500 for the job, but the job cost us $4,700, right? Because we had to fix our problems. So I really watched those first couple jobs to make sure the guys were good, right? And we had one really solid guy, Clark, still with us, crushing it. And so I just, at that point, after Clark did 2 or 3 jobs for us, it was to the point where like, here's the scope of work, Clark, go at it, right? Go get it, go eat. And that's what he would do, right? And then we just kind of kept scaling, and we got a painter that would work under him. And then I got another lead painter, and we're up to 8 painters, I think, right now. So that's kind of how it started. No, I did not pick up a paintbrush, believe it or not. But what I'm good at, because I'm not good at that stuff, right? But what I am good at is marketing. What I am good at is branding. What I am good at is sales, right? So I did focus on those 3 parts out of the gate. About 2 months in, 3 months in, we hired a sales rep, right? We hired a project manager. So we just started to make these hires once our company grew. But now that takes me to the next part. It's like, how do you know when you're at that point? That was one of the questions, is how do you know when to hire employees for this? And how do you know when you could afford it? And so in that course that I bought, imagine that, I paid $2,000. That course is, I could have paid $20,000 for that course. It'd still be worth it. The people that have bought my course for $2,000 or whatever it's priced at right now, it's, in my opinion, if you talk to the people that have used it and actually implemented the things in there, it's worth $50,000, $100,000, depending on who you talk to. They might say $500,000 course. But in this course, they had basically benchmarks for the industry. And so the benchmarks were basically your cost of goods sold should be 47%, right? And now the reason let me get to the point here, because some of you guys like, Justin, I don't want anything to do with the painting business. That's fine, but now this is still a good learning lesson for you. Because whenever you start a company, you got to decide what you're good at, what you can do, what you need to offload, right? Then the next part is understanding like the financials of it. You have to know, I have this conversation with Ryder all the time, because Ryder will come in and he wants to win every job. He's competitive, he's good at sales, but he wants to try to make every single deal work. He wants to turn every estimate into a job. And so he'll come in and like, man, this job's $4,200, but I think I overbid it. I think we can come down to like $3,000. I said, dude, I'm not effing doing that, because I'm not getting to a position where we're losing money. Like, our price is our price, because I know what it costs to run our business. Now that's different for everybody, right? We have an office here. We now have trucks, we have people, we offer really good benefits to our people. Not that you have to start with all this, but wherever you're starting and as you grow, you have to know what your expenses are so that you know what to charge, so that you can make money, you can cover your expenses that are directly related to the job, on the job site. You can cover all your other overhead that's a part of the business that's not directly on each job site. And then you can also have a profit, right? What is the point of there's so many, especially in the contracting industry, but so many businesses in general, there's people that will charge $1,800 for a project. Yeah, I'll do that for $1,800. They get excited. And then like 3 weeks later, like, oh shit. Because they just realized that it cost them $2,100 to perform that work, right? Because they don't know, and a lot of times actually people will go a full year, then realize, oh wait, I'm running into money issues. They didn't know that. They thought all along they were charging $1,800 for this project, $2,000 for that project. They thought they were making money all along because of how the cash was hitting the bank account and everything. But all of a sudden it catches up to them, and slowly they're out of cash, in the negative. Don't have any cash flow. It's because they don't know how much their services actually charge or cost themselves to produce, and they sometimes don't. They underestimate how long something's going to take, which also eats into your cost, because if it takes longer, it's going to cost more. So I found benchmarking, and I got that from the course once again. And I didn't just listen to anybody. The guy that I did the course from, Eric Barstow, he's very well known in the painting industry. his business, I don't know. He's never said. I would imagine that his business probably does $7 million, $10 million a year in revenue is my guess, just from what I've heard him say and doing the math in my head and being a business person. I can kind of, read through some lines there. That's my guess. It could be a lot more than that. I could have definitely, Eric, sorry if I offended you there. It could be definitely more than that. So I'm not just listening to anybody, but I take these benchmarks, and I would say that these benchmarks that I was using, and I'll go over them in a second. And I know that some of you are listening. If you're listening, I would highly suggest go back and watch this, just in case in a little bit I do get carried away and we start writing on the board in here and it's on a video. I'll do my best to explain it as much as possible. But when you're doing the benchmarking, there's a lot of people there's benchmarks out there, but they're not as successful benchmarks, right? So the benchmarks that I went by, cost of goods sold should be 47%. Well, what's cost of the job, right? So if I charge $100, that means of that $100, $47 is going to go towards the cost of goods sold, which is materials and the labor, right? Well, in this scenario, and typically the labor should be between 32%, well, let's see, 35% and 40% is where it should be. So every $100 that you charge, it should 35 of that to 40% of that, $35 to $40 should go towards labor. Now the labor is going to cover, it's going to cover their gross wages, but also if you offer benefits. So if you offer insurance, PTO, 401k, or anything like that, right? All of that has to fit within there. So that gives you an idea of how much more you need to charge in comparison to the labor, right? So if we have a total cost of goods sold around 47 to 50%, and if we're paying, for us, if we're paying our labor 35 to 40%, our materials got to come in somewhere between 10 and 15%, right? And so our whole first year, we were about 16 or 17%. And so since then, just recently here, as the start of 2021, I showed our sales rep at Sherwin-Williams, who we use, I showed our sales rep how much we'd done in business in the first year, and he's like, holy crap, most guys, like it was actually the first 6 months of operations. He's like, most people hope to do that, by the time they're in business for 6 years. Most people hope to do 1/10 of that in their first year when they're opening a painting business. And so I started to get, man, if I can drive volume and help this guy, help Sherwin-Williams, give Sherwin-Williams as much business as possible, I bet I can get a lot better pricing. So I told Sherwin-Williams, I said, we'll stop buying ladders and everything from Home Depot and Menards. We'll shift anything that we can buy from you, we will shift over to you. All I ask is you give us the most competitive pricing ever. I want to be around 10%, 11% of my materials to revenue. I will buy everything from you if you can be competitive. And they got super competitive. So right now, our labor, if cost of goods sold, if they're saying, hey, be between 47 and 50%. Right now, our labor has been sitting between 32% and 35%. Our materials for this year has been sitting around 11%. So we're crushing it there, right? And people are like, oh, your labor, the labor cost. It sounds like you have a couple percentage points there to go up. You being cheap on people? No, we're actually being very competitive. I've got lead painters that came to us now from other painting companies here in southern Wisconsin, and they said, you're more competitive by far. What you are paying your very beginner painters is what some of the best painters and the top lead painters and master painters at these other companies were being paid. So when you look at our pay schedule, very competitive, right? Which for me, that's important because I'm looking for specific type of people. I'm not just looking for, a drugged out painter. I'm looking for people who work hard, who are going to show up, who are results driven, who want to get better, who look at it as a craft and want to get better every single day at their craft, right? If you're looking at those type of character people, you can't just pay them, $11 an hour. It's just not going to happen in that industry, right? So when you look at painters, they've been getting paid. Our painters been getting paid anywhere from $13.50 to $13 to about $20. Much more competitive than the marketplace, right? Now, not all of them started where they're at, but as they've grown, we've been able to get them more. All right, that's that. Marketing is, they recommended 5%. I'm getting out of a second here. Marketing is 5% of cost of goods sold. But what I did was I looked at marketing and I said, we got to get some airflow. But I looked at marketing and I said, hey, I'm going to use this as marketing. Yes. I'm going to do the 5%. That's going to be my goal. right? Everything that I was watching, they wanted 5% of the revenue to be towards marketing. If you're spending more than 5%, you're spending too much on leads. You're spending too much on leads, don't do it. So me, I'm like, okay, well, I'll try to watch that number, but then I'm also going to have a subset category in marketing that's called branding. And branding is going to be things that aren't just going directly towards getting leads. So branding could be, more clothing and swag. Branding could be, billboards. For us, or it could be all of this, but for us, branding was more general type ads on Facebook to cast a wide net, right? So I didn't care with that portion of money if it didn't have a return right away. You don't have to do this right away, right? I'm trying to scale a very big business. I want to be recognized. So I could have cash flow be a little bit tighter in Prime Painters. That helped a lot already. I could have cash flow be a lot tighter in Prime Painters because I could make it up somewhere else. I didn't need this. If you're looking to need it, maybe you skip that for now. That's fine, right? The cool thing, if you actually really want to grind and if you start a business from nothing, you go out, you do the door knocking, you get those jobs, you do the painting, you could essentially have no marketing costs. And really, your time cost would be the labor costs, right? And then you should scale from there. So you don't even necessarily need the marketing. I'm just looking at it from my standpoint and my thoughts. At some point, you're going to want that. You're going to want to scale. You'd never want to keep a business small forever. It will eat you alive. Your competition will eventually kill you. Capitalism will eventually kill you. And scaling is always a way to go. It's the same thing when I'm talking real estate. I'm always talking more units in one spot, more units in one spot, more units in one spot, because you have scale, right? So with this, it's like, here's our footprint, and let's get as many jobs in this footprint as possible to dominate that market, to have a scale economy in that market so that we can continue to grow. So that on top of our employees being, the painters being very competitively compensated for the work they're performing, to then also hopefully be able to bonus them out at the end of the year, right? You can't do that if you're small. You can't do that if you're charging bare minimum, right? You can't do that if you don't know what your costs are all along the way and can't appropriately, can't correctly bid a job to the price point it needs so that you have the leftover resources, aka money, to be able to do those things. Then I've got, then on here there's costs of sales, which, going to a sales rep, right? I've got a cost of 7% here. We pay a commission of 5% to our sales rep. Just because we pay them 5% doesn't mean that's our actual cost. Our actual cost on the sales rep is closer to 7% because we have the benefits. We pay the 5% commission, but then we have the benefits. We have the payroll tax. So there's other things that you need to be aware of in it. You got to know the truth. You got to know your stuff. It's a big difference, right? 5% here, 2% here that I miss out, 2% there that I miss out. It's a $100,000 business a year of revenue. That's an extra $4,000 right there, gone on top of everything else, right? Project management. Project management also is about 5%. So usually what you'll do is you'll hire someone that, and I'll go through the different parts of our company and the processes in those departments and stuff like that in a second. But we've got a project management department. You'll pay someone about 5% gross wages of your revenue to have them manage projects, right? Whether you actually pay them like a production bonus based on how much they successfully produced, or it's a salary, whatever, their gross should be about 5% roughly, right? Now, once again, you're probably not going to have that person right away. You're going to need scale, right? But I wanted these benchmarks right away so that I could start to get to the point of scale and start to see it. I had to know where I needed to go. I had to have the vision, right? Project management, though, also, if we're paying them, once again, we have the benefits, we have the payroll taxes, et cetera, workman's comp, whatever, all that junk. So we put for 7%. Obviously, as you're growing, if you have overhead with trucks, if you have other equipment that needs servicing, if you have office space, if you have utilities at the office space, if you have accounting department, you're going to obviously have more overhead. So you're going to have admin costs of anywhere and other costs, admin, facility, and other costs that will be anywhere from 2 to 10% in aggregate, right? So now if I add all that up, I know my costs. Right? I should have this much profit. So now when it comes to selling the jobs, right? we got to make sure that we're accounting for all that. So we basically have a formula, right? So we'll go out and do a job. We know about how much, and there's standard. There's a magazine that I got from here's another investment, right? The PCA, the Painting Contractors Association. They have benchmarking. They have books. They have education. For $100, I bought two little binders, and one of those little binders have the average production rates across the industry for all types of different painting. And this includes drywall repair, popcorn ceiling removal, painting of walls, painting of steel, painting of aluminum, priming, rolling, brushing, spraying, caulking, anything that wallpaper removal. It's like 7 straight pages of just different production rates, and it shows how many square feet, linear feet of trim, whatever that people can do on average per hour. Right now, the bad thing about that is it's average. Right? So when you get average, sometimes you're going to hire people. Some people are above average, some people are average, some people are below average. So we just started using the averages, right? So if in the book it said, hey, they can paint on average 300 square feet, a gypsum board wall or drywall type walling that's already primed and everything, it's got texture on it. An average painter, according to the PCA, can do 300 square feet per hour. Well, guess what? We're going to go into the house when we get a lead, and we're going to count basically and do calculations on how many square feet that we're painting. If they want these 6 rooms done, we're going to take measurements, know how many square footage. Now with the square footage, we can convert that into a production rate for labor. We can take the square footage and know how much paint that we're going to need, because guess what? On the gallons of paint, imagine this, Sherwin-Williams, there's a range on the bucket of paint. It says this, one gallon will cover. It's usually a number between 250 and 400. All the different paints have a different number. So we look at that and what type of paint do the people want, what price range they want to be in. Once we figure that out, we know how many gallons of paint that we need, right? We figure up all of our costs. And we basically take that cost between the materials and the labor, and we divide that by 0.45. And then that gives us our total. So we know the costs. We know what we're dividing by to get our total. We have the charge. Here, we write up the contract. Here we go. We get a signature. We're rocking and rolling. We get a 25% deposit. Hey, the project manager will be in touch with you over the next couple of weeks. Your job will start 30 to 60 days from now. We're rocking and rolling, off to the races. I wouldn't have been able to do that, and I would not have been able to grow the company to being close to $1 million in 1 year if I had to learn all of that by trial and error. I promise you that. Maybe some people out there could. No way I would have been able to. If I didn't have the resources that I had with the PCA, the course that I took, using Sherwin-Williams and our sales rep to learn and take advice, never would have been able to grow something like this. It would have taken me a year and a half to really learn the hard way. And we learned the hard way in some individual jobs. But in gross and aggregate, I would have had to learn the hard way if I didn't take some of those shortcuts and be able to model after other people, right? And what they're doing, other successful people and what they're doing. Not just anybody. You can't just follow anybody into the lion's den. You got to follow someone that's been through it before, that's successful, that has what you want, right? And so I'll get into our departments next, but that's another thing with just, no, I haven't done any of the painting. I've, since we've got the sales rep involved, I'll spend maybe, a long day, I'll spend 4 hours on the painting business. On a short day, I'll spend 0. I would say on average, if you average it all out, since we started this thing, I would say that I probably average an hour and a half a day to 2 hours a day on the painting company myself, right? Not everyone's going to start that way, and that's fine, right? Not everyone's going to do close to $1 million in their first year, and that's fine. Some people will be able to go out and do more than $2 million, $3 million in their first year, no doubt about it, in whatever business you're starting. My mindset with this painting company is, obviously I'm busy with my other companies, right? My main thing, and that's real estate. It's built a lot of wealth for me. In our investors, and it's given a lot of people jobs and opportunity. I wanted to be able to provide a better service to our properties. I wanted to be able to keep more of the money that we give out to vendors, to be able to buy more real estate, essentially, to be able to pump back in. Another nice thing with owning prime painters And we're actually starting to get into flooring now. So I'm basically going through and figuring out production rates for flooring right now as well, and standard operating procedures so that we can bite that off. The nice thing about this is we don't have a vendor. If we have a property, sometimes when we're doing the value add deals, we'll have a property that starts to lag a little bit, where our occupancy drops, our vacancy rises, because we're doing so much work at the property, right? We're remodeling so many units at once sometimes. With other vendors, we can't just choose not to pay, right? Most of our vendors, we negotiate that we have 30 days upon receiving the invoice to pay. With prime painters, like Signature 23, we've had to take a lot of dollars and divert them into different units, and a lot of unexpected things have happened there. So the cash flow there has gotten very tight. Signature 23 has received, I don't know, probably $30,000 of work from prime painters between drywall, priming, painting, painting the common areas, apartments. We did a couple partial demos and stuff like that. Prime painters yet to see a dime of that. So we're just floating that to the property. That's another benefit of being in control of what's going on here and having more ownership, right? It's giving the property more flexibility to get other more important things done and use that money and then pay us later. I have no problem with that, right? So that's another benefit. So then we've been starting to do with all of our businesses is we've started to come up with a little bit more standard operating procedures across the whole company, right? Here. Prime Painters Playbook, right? So now I'm going to go through the different divisions of the company. And do we always abide by this 100%? Can we just always play in this box? No. And I don't want everyone just to always play in this box. But at the same time, like, the more standard you can make things, the better. Because now you can plug people in and out. You can grow a lot faster. This is how we do things around here. There's not a gray area of like, oh, I don't know what I should do here. And now they go, people, I want to be able to set people up for success. I don't want them to not know their boundaries and where they can't go or can't play, right? I want them to know their boundaries, what's expected. And so this has our different divisions, right? And through here, we've got the sales process, right? And if you're listening right now, I've got this playbook in my hand. Once again, you should go watch this, right? And then after that, after we sell a job, we've got the production process. All right, we got a few pages on there, 1.5, 2.5, and we're always adding to this and adapting. I've really been, I have a better playbook for prime painters than I do for Spaulding Group right now. It's been tougher on the Spaulding Group side to implement. The prime painter side, it's been a lot easier to implement. And then we've got project management process, right? So you sell a job, and you got to produce the job. While you're producing the job, you got to manage the job. You got the accounting process. Because through there, you got to collect the money. You got to pay the bills, right? You got the HR process. We're still filling that one out, right? But those are kind of our core silos or core processes within prime painters. And you just you got to know what you got to do every single time, right? Like McDonald's, I was reading something. McDonald's has they can plug, actually, Modine, you worked at McDonald's, right? Not like, I've read some on this. Is it true? I guess you're the person to ask maybe. Is it true that they have like a 37-step process to create a cheeseburger?
No.
Oh, it's not?
It's one.
Oh. But they have...
Maybe 10.
Okay, 10. But they have like 10 straight like steps, basically. This is our process, right?
They started like, you have to do like 2 cheeseburgers at a time. Started like the make cheeseburgers.
So, but they got it like, and it's probably like, do you go in there and, did you make burgers when you were there?
Yeah.
So once. But most time when people start making burgers there, like the first few days, like they probably read something, they probably have something.
Yeah.
They have a tablet and they have a list, right? Basically check off the box, right? So the most successful companies in the world have standard processes, and that's because they can pump people in and out. Like Modine just said, peace out, McDonald's. Yeah. Can I say that?
Sure.
Modine just has said, hey, peace out, McDonald's. I'm going to work for Spaulding Group now, be a content creator there. So now McDonald's has to replace with somebody that, Modine's job. And whatever he was doing there at McDonald's, whether it's the burgers or whatever, everything. What else were you doing at McDonald's, Modine? What was your main thing there, Modine? Customer service. Yeah. But even for customer service, do they have a list?
Sure. You have to ask and repeat.
So McDonald's has their standard operating procedures that they want to abide by, because it's not, and for me, it's not so much I want to keep people in a cage and this is how we do things here, and it's not like micromanaging, although it's micromanaging to an extent. I mean, I want things to be done in a uniform standard manner, just from the standpoint of like things change. Like we've had painters already come and go, just like Maudine is leaving. He went to McDonald's, worked there for how long?
6 months.
6 months, and now he's gone. Right, so now the next guy that fills a spot, probably like McDonald's usually for most people is not a long-term, it's a starter job, and it's like, it's not a long-term thing. Maudine's just graduated high school, like going to college, it's not a long-term thing for most people, right? So when you have a lot of turnover, which in any business that I've been a part of, we've always had a decent amount of turnover, right? The more standard you can make everything, now you can start to plug people in and out. So if I go through this, I'm gonna start in the sales process. This is how we do things at Prime Painters, right? Now, this is how we should be doing things at Prime Painters. Is this always to a T 100%? No, I would say it's not. Should it be? Yeah, I mean, we should be as close as possible. But obviously the first step, and I'm not going to read each thing, but the first thing is obviously generate the leads, right? So I've got on here choosing the marketing mediums, which is, hey, pay for lead platforms such as HomeAdvisor, CraftJack, Thumbtack, Facebook, Google AdWords, other. Right. The other reason I've got these written down is so that we can go through and check. Like we can go through and check. Okay, right now? What does our advertisement look like on HomeAdvisor? What does it look like on Thumbtack, Facebook? It reminds us, right? It keeps me in check. It keeps us in check. These are the things that we have to pay attention to. Then on here I've just got, hey, make sure on these websites we only have checked off and we're paying for leads for services that we actually provide. Right? If we're only doing exterior painting, interior painting, and power washing, I want to make sure that we don't have window installs checked so that we're paying for leads that are looking for window install, right? And then it's choosing the branding mediums. I talked about spending money on branding before. We had dollars allocated there, so we obviously then have to choose which platforms those dollars are going into, and it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, flyers, billboards, other. The lead database. Once we get a lead, I've talked about this on my show before, right? Once you're in our lead system, you're always going to be in our lead system. You can say, take me off that list. What do you got there?
All the tutorials. How to
Tutorials from McDonald's?
Yeah.
So Maudine, right now, we're talking about the standard operating processes at McDonald's. That's unbelievable. Let me see it.
Because I am a crew trainer.
Oh, gotcha. Cool. So yeah, McDonald's literally has on an app, like McDonald's digital education leading organizational handbook. 1, guest experience leader. 2, entrance and kiosk. 3, services. So these are all different sections they have for each different, like what the guest experience leader should be doing, what the entrance person at the kiosk should be doing, what the service should be like. That's cool. So they literally have it on an app so that these guys always know what they should be doing. Right, so now if I get back to this, we even got, on here I've got lead database and what it should look like. We should have their name, all the information that I want, right? Their email, their cell phone number, right? Then it comes down to contacting leads. How are we contacting them? How often are we contacting them? If they don't answer, what do we do? If they do answer, what do we do? If they don't answer on the first try, when are we calling back and contacting again? If they don't answer on the second try, third try, fourth try, fifth try, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 follow-up times here on when you're supposed to follow up. And that's not just for painting. That should be just about for anything. Then we got step 3, the estimate. So once you get a hold of the lead, you got to schedule the estimate. Now we're going to talk about scheduling the estimate. Make sure you're scheduling the estimate with a time where all decision makers can be present. Confirm the estimate in time the day before with the client so that we're not wasting time driving to an estimate with no confirmation that they're going to be there, right? Then we've got actually conducting the estimate, starting with build a rapport with the client. Ask the client what their needs are. What are they looking for? Do a walk around the house with the client. Like I've literally got it bullet by bullet point. And when we start someone new, when the sales rep started, he went through this and watched videos similar to what Maudine just brought up on his phone on McDonald's. It's similar to that. It's the same type of thing, right? So that's the estimate and conducting the estimate. Then for the sales process, then we've got, once you're through the estimate, now it's like, hey, yes or no, right? Well, if they say no, now they go in our follow-up bucket, and this is how it works, right? I've got that in here. If they say yes, now we're going to draft and execute the contract. What does that look like, right? I've got 18 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 steps for drafting and executing a contract. If they say yes, and they accept the contract, right? Which, by the way, we're hoping about 50% of the people that we get a lead from become an estimate. Once they're an estimate, we hope, we hope we convert right away. We hope we convert about 40 to 45% of those, right? So the 45% that say yes, we're going to create a scope of work. We're going to collect their deposit, et cetera, et cetera. For the 60 to 55% that say no, once again, we've got the follow-up process. Now they're going to stay in our database, right? And our database is broken down. And once again, this is not just painting. This is the same stuff that I do raising millions of dollars in real estate. I've got we have a leads tab in Excel. And yes, we're still just using Excel. We're not even fancy enough to be buying Salesforce. I probably should be looking at Salesforce or something like that, or a CRM, but we use Excel. We've got leads in one tab. Once they've converted and become an estimate, we move them from the leads and keep all their information. It's literally we copy and paste the whole row of that lead. We then paste it into the estimates tab. Then we add the estimate amount, how much it was. And then if it becomes a job, we move it to the job one and what the total amount is, and et cetera, et cetera. And then we have some job stats and how much materials we actually used and how much labor we actually had, right? So we have stats and all that stuff. So we know where we can then get better, right? We know that if we're projecting our guys are going to paint this 300 square feet per hour, but then we actually see the job, it's like, oh shit, like we projected that was going to be done in 42 man hours. It took 60. Why? Well, sometimes it takes 60 because we got the brand new guy on that team so he could get experience. That's an investment. That's okay. That's going to happen. He's going to get trained up. That's not going to happen all the time. But if it was a crew that we always are accustomed to having out there on the job, why did it take that much longer? Right? And now we're going to look into it, ask questions. Did we run across something that was more challenging? Did we underbid it? Are our numbers off? Were we working higher and there was more time that we needed to allocate for? We got to start asking questions so now we can change things. Once again, know our costs, know our benchmarking, and what things are actually costing us to then charge adequately for the job. I don't care. If we don't get the job, we don't get the job. We got to make money on the jobs, and we're not in this to lose money, right? All right, then creating scope of work, right? So now once the job is said yes, think about this, right? The process is the sales rep is going to go set the estimate up. The sales rep is going to go do the estimate. The sales rep is going to be in communication. Once the job is signed, the sales rep is done. The deposit gets collected by accounting, right? So when he gets a completed contract, sends it to accounting. Accounting reaches out for the deposit. Our sales rep will touch deposit if on the spot the people want to sign up. Okay, I'll take a 25% payment. You can write a check. I'll take it to the office. Other than that, like once it's signed, they're pretty much done. They're going to create the scope of work. And the scope of work is important because the scope of work is what's going to translate the job, what's included, what's not included, what type of paint is used, what color, it's going to basically let production know and communicate the job. The communication, we've had issues here, and that was something that we had to figure out. We figured out finally like 3 or 4 months ago how to go about this, and we have a really good system in place now. But there used to be a lapse in that communication, and sales would take a job, close it, and then sometimes we did end up with an unhappy customer because it wasn't followed all the way through, not because our guys were intentionally not doing their job or being lazy or whatever. There was a lack of communication. There was a gap in the snaps there that didn't connect, that wasn't communicated. If it's not communicated, our guys don't know about it. Our guys and gals don't know about it. They can't produce on it, right? If they can't produce on it, we're going to have an unhappy client, right? Now we made all those things right. We went back and did it right. Hey, we're going to take care of this right. They ended up happy. We've had issues there. So the creating of the scope of work, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Wait, which page am I on here? 14. So the creating the scope of work is 14 steps for the sales rep to follow. Make sure you have all that information. If we have all that information, we haven't had problems. It's like this. It's like the business will work like clockwork. Like I'll wipe my hands, and that's why I only have to be involved for an hour. When we have issues, there's usually an issue in the scope of work, communication with our production team, right? And then once again, we've got the follow-up. So the sales rep, we do want the sales rep following up on non-responsive leads, unsigned estimates, and contract. And once again, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 times to follow up. And if it doesn't happen on the 13th, they're still staying in our lead database because every 3 months after that, at a minimum, they're getting reached out to. So it's actually going to be more. It's 13 touches in the first 3 months after signing the contract. And then also communication and follow up with past clients to number one, contact them, talk to them, thank them for their business, see how they, see that they're still enjoying our project and our work, obtain and ask for a 5-star review online, check to see if they have any other projects coming up, and asking for referrals. I'm telling you, this should be done in every business though. We need to be better in this on the Spaulding Group side when it comes to our properties. Like it should just be to a T. Like everybody knows what we're doing and we're getting closer. Like we've closed the gap. We were this far apart, and now we're getting so close. But then we've got the production process, right? This is how we produce the jobs. Our on-site contract, our on-site conduct, and how we should be acting, and how we should be presenting ourselves, and what we should be wearing, and what we should be saying, and how we introduce ourselves. Equipment and tools. They talk about job site safety, interior jobs. The prep work, completing a job, jobs that last multiple days. What are we doing as far as like where we're storing equipment and all that stuff in between, like overnight. Exterior work, talking about production rates and how guys should be using job codes to track their time, how we order and buy inventory. And these are just like the headlines. Each of these headlines I'm reading has anywhere from 2 to 8 steps. 2 to 8 things that need to be done. Painter training, how we do cabinets, how we do doors, base trim, wallpaper, how we refinish wood floors, which is new for us because we're starting to get in flooring. How we handle change orders. A big issue with us, right? And this can be for any business. A big issue for us was a client, we'd be on the job, client would ask a painter, hey, oh, by the way, can you do this? And all of a sudden, hours start adding up, and I started to see like our estimated hours, like 40 hours was estimated. It took 46. Why did it take 46, Clark? Well, she asked me to do the vents. She asked me to do the switches. She asked me to do the trim. And I just said, from that standpoint forward, I said, hey, guys, all change orders, if it is not on the scope of work that you get, this sheet of paper, if it's not on the scope of work, it doesn't mean that we won't do it. It means that we need to get a change order in because we have to allocate for that time. We can't just sit there and do free work, right? So now we have a change order process, right? Then we've got project management. So how these projects should be managed by the managers who are managing them. And then we've got the accounting process, how we're collecting money, how we're paying bills, how we're doing financials, how we're budgeting. It's all right there. You know what the unique thing is? Not the unique thing, but what the cool thing is if you think about the big silos that I had, the sales process, right? It doesn't say the painting sales process. It just says the sales process. So the sales process can be good for a marketing agency. It can be good for an investment firm. It can be good for a bank. It can be good for car sales. It can be good for anything because any business will die without sales to generate revenue, right? Then guess what? The next big silo in my sheet here was the production process that we just went over. It doesn't say the painting production process because now we do flooring too, right? It's just the production process, right? Every business has to produce a good. It doesn't have to be a physical good. It's either got to be a good or a service. So how are you producing that good or service, right? This is how you can scale. This is how you can get more people on board quicker, faster, right? If you have a little bit of turnover, it's okay because, hey, here's how we do things when you come here. You can interview people. We interview people. I do not care about how talented they are. Maudine came in technically with no content creator experience. Yes, I mean, he's done stuff on TikTok, some cool videos and stuff like that, but no professional experience. You just graduated high school. Ryder, just graduated high school. Yeah, man, you can be our sales rep. Like guys coming in that we're hiring, no, I don't have any, significant painting background, but you know what? I hire around our core values at our company. You decide what your core values are, hire around those. And then if you have the processes here, you should be able to teach them how to do these jobs. Once again, I think that this is true for 98% of the businesses out there. Again, there's the 2% where Elon Musk needs an engineer, and there's probably an engineer that you can't just teach overnight how to do versus painting, versus content creating, versus, being my job. Everything that I do can be taught. You can learn how to do it relatively quickly. I will outwork you. That's the main thing. So if you're willing to put in time, it doesn't matter what the business is, you can go out and do this. So it's the production process, right? All companies are producing something, a good or a service. What's your process for it? Then the next silo we had was project management process. How are you managing your production? Who's overseeing it? That's for any business. The accounting process, right? Every business has to have an accounting process. Otherwise, the money come in and what just sits in your, like they can write you a check, they can pay you electronically online, but if there's no accounting process, that money just sits there in the bank account and now you're not paying your bills. You don't have any people getting paid their salary when the paychecks are due. You don't have, if they're just writing checks, where are the checks going? How the check's being handled? Who's depositing checks? You just throw them on the floor and let them build up? It's a process of how you're handling that stuff. Then the other thing is we have the HR process. So those are our processes that we have in our business. And you could, once again, that'll cover you for 98% of the businesses you're going to start right there. What else, Modine? I know we're probably like an hour in right now.
58 minutes.
58. So let me go through some of these questions again. So how did I initially fund it? For me, it was savings, right? I had savings. But it's not like I put in 50 grand. I put in $4,000. If I really was someone that was desperate, if this was me 8 years ago in 2012, bootstrapping a business, and if I didn't have the $4,000 to front, I could have started. What I would have done, I would have bought probably $100. Okay, this is actually what I would have done first. If I had zero money, how I would do it is I would actually go sell a job first. I would go knock on a door, and I would knock on 500 doors in a week. I would find someone who needed painting to be done. If this is the actual situation where I don't have an office, I don't have any other equipment or employees, I can be much more competitive on my price, right? So I would do whatever to get that first job where I essentially, if it's a job that we charge $4,000 for now, maybe I would go in there and say, I'll bust my butt. I'll do this job for $1,000. You give someone a great deal, right? You get the contract signed with a 25% deposit. What just happened? You just got a contract for $1,000. You got 25% down. They're going to pay you $250. What am I going to do with that $250? I'm going to go put that $250. My basic accounting process tells me I got to go put that in the bank and then reinvest it. I'm going to go out of that $250. I'm going to go buy probably $100 in equipment. I'm going to go buy a paintbrush, a roller, and a tray. The rest of the money I'm going to use to buy part of the product or all the product that they need to paint the house. And then when I'm done and I've done that job, and maybe that job takes me 5 days. I don't know how long it takes me, 6 days. They pay me another $750, right? It's just me. I don't have any other costs going out. You just made $1,000. So you don't have to have. I did the $4,000 route thing because there was other things that I wanted to do to save time. And if I wanted to save more time, I probably could have wrote a $10,000 check or a $15,000 check, $150,000 check. And hired more people right out of the gate. But I'm someone that the closer that you can start from the bottom, the people who are going to be most successful are the people that will start closest to the bottom, so they understand and know and have the concepts of how to do everything. That's the thing in real estate. I started when I bought the first property, I was the manager, I was the leasing agent, I was the marketer, I was the maintenance tech, I was the lawnmower, I was shoveling snow, what else is there to do? I was signing leases and sending leases out. I was working on lease renewals. I was taking people to eviction court. I was, working with the attorney. I was being the accountant. I was doing everything. Doesn't mean that I'm perfect at anything. And I was really bad at a lot, but now I at least know the process. And once you know the process, now it's just a matter of being able to fill in the voids once you can, right? So now go do a second, third, and fourth painting job, work your tail off, work 90-hour weeks for very little pay up front for yourself. And then once you start to get some money, start to okay, I'm not good at the painting. Let's get a painter in here. Now you go keep selling jobs. But now you got to turn that $1,000 job probably into more of a $1,500 or a $2,000 job, because now you're paying someone else and you still need money left over in the business, right? So the more overhead you have, the more people you have, obviously you're going to be charging more, right? So that's how I started. that was how much money that I started, ballpark, about how much money. And then along the way, so the question was, the full question is, how did you initially fund it? And then the rest of the question is, was it some of your own money all along the way, or more organic growth and bootstrapping? So after the initial 4,000, that was all bootstrapping. I bootstrapped the rest of it. So I would take my profits, I would just roll it forward. We'd buy more equipment, started buying trucks. We're paying for trucks in cash. Like when the company does what, like when we need more trucks, buy trucks in cash. I think we have one vehicle back there that has a loan on it. Buy the equipment in cash, right? And we put it on credit card, get some credit card points, but turn around, pay it off right away. We talked about that. Hey, did you go do that last week, by the way?
I applied for us.
So they got something. They have a product for you. My man. Getting his credit up. Did they have to offset it with a bank account to start or no?
Yeah, because
your dad?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So your dad got $1,000 for you. Your dad gonna split some of that with you?
No.
Whoa, man.
He wants me.
That's funny. So Maudine had a question last week about how to get a credit card or something like that, how to improve a credit score. I told him, man, go get a credit card, go to your local bank. They got some type of program. You can get a credit card. It'll be like $100. What's the limit? $100, $200, $250 maybe? Do you even know? $250? So, but he's just going to use it for gas, like things that he already needs, and then not have to pay interest on it, turn around, pay it off right away, start to build his credit a little bit, give him more credit opportunity. That credit will turn into from 250 to 500 to 750 to 1,000, right? And his credit score will go up too. So that's cool, Maudine. Way to go. Did you take action on that right away that same day? Did you take action on that right away the same day last week? Damn, what day did you do it? Okay, so you waited 48 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you had to go into work after you were here on Friday?
Yeah, I was here.
All right.
Then
okay.
Weekend.
All right. That's pretty good time, though. You got after it. So that's going to be a wrap for the Justin Spaulding Show, episode 14. And we're going to come back and answer more questions on the very next episode, episode 15, and go deeper into the prime painters, questions and stuff like that. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. If you're watching, please subscribe. Please subscribe to YouTube. I mean, I waited like an hour to even say that once. So if you've made it this far, please subscribe. If you're listening, same thing. Go to YouTube, subscribe to my channel, and we'll talk to you later.